But the thing is, I came to the realization is like, when I look back at my career, it's like, I did all these different things. I was constantly changing careers. I went from being a project manager to being a system engineer to being a person who wrote software to being a person who like had a wrench in his back pocket and putting together systems by hand on the operations floor to someone who is a branch chief, a mid-level manager, and then, in charge of compliance when, all hell broke loose. And, I did all these different things. And I helped lots of other people kind of make those changes too. And it's like, you know what? That's what I am. I'm a career change expert. And that's how I'm going to identify myself.
Hoorah. Hoorah. Laughter dances with truth in mostly fictional tales, where reality and fantasy engage in a tango. Hello, friends, and welcome back to Mostly Fictional Tales. I am your host, Rathgar, and today we have the pleasure of continuing my conversation with Troy Heiner. He's a career change specialist, a retired analyst from the National Security Agency, and a cancer survivor. Troy's career was profoundly impacted by the Edward Snowden security leak, which redirected his focus for over an entire year. He's now channeling those experiences into a compelling book. That's what he tells me. So that's my story. I'm sticking with it. Thank you very much, David. Join us as we dive into his journey and the lessons that he's learned along the way. I'm not sure we've gotten to the end of the story yet, because I understand you have written a book already and needed to get security clearance to do that. Bring me up to speed on that.
I didn't need to get security clearance. I needed to get what's called pre-publication review. So there were two parts of
How is that different? I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I'm suddenly curious. How does security clearance and pre-publication review?
Because I no longer have a security clearance.
But how is it
guess
different?
It hasn't expired yet. It will expire at the end of August, because after 2 years of not being employed by the federal government, my security clearance will lapse.
Okay.
I will not be able to renew it unless I go through the entire painful process all over again.
Okay.
So the difference is, like I said, I have lifetime obligations as someone who had or has a security clearance, and one of those is protecting, any classified information. And then anything that I'm going to publish that might be sensitive, I need to send it back to the Home Office and have them review it to make sure that I'm not, sharing anything that should not be shared.
This sounds really onerous to place that as an obligation upon you as the might business. But I'm getting the sense from you that this is not something that you think is all that onerous. You go, I really want somebody to double check me because I really don't want to reveal something that I shouldn't. Does that sound about right?
Yeah. I mean, it's for the country's protection. It's also for my protection, just to make sure that, the stories that I wanted to tell had, obviously had some nexus with my time, as a manager, as a leader in the federal government. And, the Snowden story and the story of the, there's another, software product that I was kind of helping to bring into the world. I wanted to make sure I wasn't sharing anything classified about that. And so I submitted both of those sub-chapters of my book for review, and then I will have to submit the entire manuscript for review before it actually gets published.
Okay. So that's how basically having a security clearance is what do you get access to that's right now, that's fresh, you're trusted, you can look at whatever your security level gets you to, right? But pre-publication review is not really, it is a security clearance, but it's not in the same way. You're not getting access to fresh info. They're just saying the info that you did have, this is still, no, don't go into that topic. That other stuff, that's all out there, going into it.
Yeah, people who've had a security clearance, they're aware that basically the freshness date on any classified information is 25 years. After that, it doesn't automatically become declassified,
But the
but
likelihood is
you
strong.
know, the likelihood that if something is 25 years older or more, that is probably unclassified, but it may still be for official use only, which means you still can't really talk about it in the
Yeah,
open.
yeah. My understanding is that things that fall into that category may end up being useful to by extrapolation be able to get to
Right.
something else that
If you can
is
put
really
enough,
not cool, right?
which is really easy to do these days, right? You can put a lot of data together and, you know, draw inferences from it. And, you know, the amalgamation of enough unclassified data might actually reveal a classified secret.
Interesting. Let's repackage this into an interesting thing. To find Bin Laden, you need to get a bunch of signal intelligences to find out where he is. And my understanding is that that there was a particular courier, a driver, who would go into town, drop off a thumb drive or whatever, and then drive back. And then, in order to find that guy, you needed to have a bunch of other people that are in city who are saying, "Well, this guy's coming in next time," and then by the fact that nobody's either talking about this guy who is clearly important or the various bits around him, you go, no, he is important. We got to follow this guy out to Abbottabad or wherever right?
Yeah, yeah. I actually think the Zero Dark 30 did a really good job of telling the story without actually having access to the classified details at all. They were able to piece together enough of the timeline of events that, you know, they got it pretty much right in terms of
obviously.
Yeah, they got it pretty much.
Wow.
They got it not the I guess the first clue that really made us start looking for it's like we knew there had to be one, right? There had to be some way that he was getting information into and out of his network,
and
but
to his
like,
lair.
so there had to be a courier
hiding
somewhere. It's like, but where was that connection? And that's where all that network analysis was being done, you know, to try to say, you know, there's a gap here, and, you know, who's the most likely person based on their movements to be the person who is providing that function. You know, just like in Zero Dark 30, right? They put listening posts and everything in Abbottabad, you know, to watch the movements, and it's like, yeah, that house is really somebody is really trying to stay out of the view of satellites and everything like that. So it's like, somebody important is there.
Yeah, like
right?
The guy never goes out of the upstairs thing. We can tell the movements of all the people. Man, that's what a story. When it came down to it, right? Oh my gosh, what Obama a story!
Was like, I'm only 50% sure that it's Bin Laden, but I'm 100% sure it's somebody that's important. So
yeah.
You know, the mission's a go.
Because then the decision came to who the sitting president was at the time. That this is the culmination of everything that happened under Bush and all the stuff that he put into place to find this guy, and then Obama having to say.
So the fictionalization of it as being one agent who had worked Osama bin Laden for her entire career, that was a fictionalization because it was an amalgamation of a lot of different people. But I mean, there were people that made their careers, you know, that was what their, and then, you know, just like the movie is like, all right, so we got him. It's like, what are you going to do now? So I have no idea.
How do particular fictional narratives and movies and TV shows actually get spycraft right? Obviously, I'm gonna go out on a limb here, but the Jason Bourne movies, those aren't accurate at all, are they?
No, those are fictional.
You're breaking my heart.
It's funny.
You're breaking my heart.
Oh. And James Bond, even though I watched a movie, and I'd never heard of Operation Mincemeat before? Have you?
Operation Mincemeat. I feel like I should have heard that, but I really don't know about it. What? Tell me about it.
It was a movie I watched on Netflix, and it
Oh.
starred some, Colin Firth is in it.
Okay.
It does, because one of the
Ooh.
characters in the movie, one of the characters, right? I don't know who the actor was that played the character, but was the, he's sitting there in the operations center writing a spy novel. And, it's like it was kind of the joke is everybody writing a spy novel?
Oh, you expect to be able to publish that, don't you?
Right. And the character was, and I believe this is true, was the, what's the guy that wrote all the James Bond books?
Ian Fleming.
Ian Fleming. That was one of the characters that was, the handful of people who knew about Operation Mincemeat, which was a deception, a diversion to convince the Nazis that England was going to invade Greece, but they invaded Sicily instead.
Okay. Bunch of misdirection right there.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it was kind of an elaborate plot, and they were counting on the personalities of the German, the Nazis in Spain and the Nazis in Berlin to do what they do, right? Because they had characterizations of all of those players.
Okay.
And it's like, so if they do what we expect them to do with this planted information, then, Hitler will believe that we're invading Greece instead of invading Sicily.
Again,
it's mincemeat because they planted a bunch of papers on a dead body and had him, wash up on shore in Spain and made sure that the Germans would find him.
I'm going to have to review that story. That sounds very fascinating. Very.
And I knew nothing, it's like I knew about D-Day, and, I knew that was the main, it's like, and I knew that there was a huge battle for Sicily, but I didn't realize there was any deception associated with it at all. You would think my agency would have told that story. It's like, hey, this is a classic spy story. Everybody should know this. I didn't know anything about it until I watched the movie. It's crazy.
You'd think that these would be like the things that they would train you on right away. They go, hey, no, we did this.
Yeah, it would have been a use case that, in your orientation saying, hey, this is why, spycraft is so important.
Yeah. Yeah. And that it is. I mean, misdirection, Sun Tzu would have some few very wise words regarding making sure that you keep your enemy guessing what you're up to.
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah.
So you're no longer, you retired from the National Security Agency, the agencies with 3 letters. And now, let's pick up the story then. Well, was it horrible?
Well,
no, it doesn't sound horrible. Just doesn't sound like it's very sexy or anything.
Well, that year,
surprise,
post media leaks was not great.
Okay.
That might have, been part of the reason why I ended up getting cancer, because I was working so hard.
Made your job a lot harder.
But the thing was, it took me a long time to find really what my calling was in the government, and really what I prided myself on doing the most was, and going back to HJ and the short ribs, he was the kind of boss that he said, Troy, you can be whatever you want to be. You can maybe even be the director someday, and it's my job to help you get there. So whatever it is that you want to do, I've got your back. I'm not looking for promotions. I'm not looking for advancement. I'm here to make you successful. And I said, well, gosh, if I ever get a chance to be a boss, that's the kind of boss I want to be. And so, and actually I did get a chance to be a boss, and I don't know if I quite lived up to Hiram's example.
But I can see a parallel between what you do now and what you just said.
Yeah, because eventually I got fed up with being in mid-level management, because I spent all my days in meetings and none of my days helping anybody. And I just felt like I was having the same meeting over and over and over again. So I said, I'm done with this. I got to find a different path. How can I help other people be successful? So that's when I started transitioning into the human resources part of the agency and running professional development programs. And the whole purpose of that program was to help people who were currently technical experts transition into being more technical leaders.
Okay.
And I fell in love with doing that kind of work. And then once I retired, and if I could continue doing that work from Florida, I wouldn't have retired at all. I'd still be doing it, but it wasn't a possibility, right? There was just there wasn't a way to do it.
Yeah, telecommuting is just not feasible for what you're describing. You really did need to have.
Yeah. Well, 95% of what I was doing for professional development wasn't classified at all. I mean, the details of what my program participants were doing on the job, that all that work was classified. But in terms of how do I become a better leader, how do I continue to work on my skills to grow and leverage my strengths in lots of different ways so I can continue advancing and maybe someday become a senior executive. There's nothing classified about that. There's, lots of books being written every day on that stuff. And I'm another person who's writing a book on that stuff. So, but the thing is, I came to the realization is like, when I look back at my career, it's like, I did all these different things. I was constantly changing careers. I went from being a project manager to being a system engineer to being a person who wrote software to being a person who had a wrench in his back pocket and putting together systems by hand on the operations floor to someone who is a branch chief, a mid-level manager, and then, in charge of compliance when, all hell broke loose. And, I did all these different things. And I helped lots of other people kind of make those changes too. And it's like, you know what? That's what I am. I'm a career change expert. And that's how I'm going to identify myself.
Hoorah. Hoorah. I like that a lot.
And the people I tend to help the most are the ones that, kind of get stuck in the middle of their career like I did. Right. It's like, I don't know, I could go in lots of different ways, but I don't know which way
this guy
is the best way.
This guy right here.
A lot of people get stuck there, right? I think what happens a lot with technical people is like, so I've gone as far as I can go in my current career path, and I can't just jump from the mountaintop that I'm on to a different mountaintop, right? But I don't want to climb back down and start over somewhere else So I try to help people navigate. It's like, well, what are all the strengths and things that you've learned on your journey so far? And are there ways to apply them differently so that you can maybe open up more opportunities?
So people come to you to hire this as a service, and they hire you as a consultant on this, or
yeah, it's
how does somebody make money doing that? It sounds like it's that, right?
Well, there's a lot of work that I've been doing since I've been retired. Pro bono, I guess you would say, because certainly anybody that I had coached or worked with before, I can't, for ethical reasons, I can't charge them now, right? So I'm still, helping some people like that. And then, there's people in my fraternity that I've helped, them, get their first full-time job. It's, I think you have to pay your dues whenever you're doing anything new like that. And this is the first time I'm doing anything as a private citizen and, owning my own business. So I'm learning a lot, which is good because I like to learn. But I've made a lot of mistakes, I'm sure too, in the past 2 years. Things that I wish I could have done
if you're not making mistakes, you're not living. You're not living.
Yeah,
you're just not.
Experience is the best teacher, right? And experience comes after you've made a mistake, right?
Yeah, unfortunately,
lesson comes after the test.
Unfortunately, experience is largely non-transferable. So it is a commodity that once you've got it, you can't resell it very easily. You start in Hawaii and you're in compliance, and then all hell breaks loose because of Edward Snowden and him revealing the existence of a tool that maybe what 4 people in your office had actual access to, but Edward thought it was
4
everybody
people at
except for
headquarters.
him.
Nobody. That was the funny thing. Nobody in Hawaii had access to that tool at all.
Oh,
It wasn't even available in Hawaii. It's like only at headquarters.
All right. So, this sparks congressional hearings. Well, there's news stories on CNN, on Fox, on everywhere. It's everywhere. Edward Snowden is being interviewed in.
Never let a crisis go to waste, right?
That's right. He's in an airport inside of Singapore, and nobody will let him go anywhere. And so all of that happens. But I got the sense from you earlier that something good came out of that. Is that there a little bit of transparency was earned.
Yeah, it took a while because originally, the workforce was like I said, right? The FBI was all over the place, and all of us were suspects, right? All of us were potentially criminals.
Yeah.
Right? And certainly that's how we were being treated in the press, and that's certainly what Edward Snowden was saying about NSA's workforce, so that we were just a bunch of trampling, wiping our ass with the Constitution.
Well, that doesn't sound very comfortable, but okay.
No. Yeah,
right.
It's, old and flaky. I don't know.
But no, that would not be pleasant. I have a bidet, and I'll tell you,
I need one of those.
I spent $40 on a bidet to add to my toilet, and I goddamn love it.
Yeah, especially during COVID when I couldn't get toilet paper, I really wanted a bidet.
You know what? I finally start understanding the people who think that they can't poop anywhere other than their home. I have a bidet at home. Why would I want to poop anywhere else? I truly thought being shut up in my butt with some cold water was going to be like, oh my gosh, that was going to be too. Yeah. I have a saboteur inbound.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. This one is deaf. Khaleesi is deaf. She hears of no negativity. She'll not hear it. Not from you. No, sir. She won't hear of any negativity. But, she doesn't cooperate to frame my interview very well. So Khaleesi,
Understood.
Hi there, I love you. Yes, I do. All right. She hears no negativity. Not from you, no sir. Oh, not from anyone else. No, she's a deaf kitty cat.
No.
So there we go. And as you can see, this is why so many cats show up in my generated art. It's because of this one. Hi there. What do you want? What is it that you want? This must be exactly what she wants. All right, just a little bit of a. Hey, I just want to sit on top of you right now. What we were just now getting into is what was the positive fallout from Edward Snowden having.
You said the word transparency. That was one thing. I think eventually the Glenn Greenwalds of the world, once they started doing more of their analysis, it's like, what? The NSA workforce really takes compliance and the U.S. Constitution very, very seriously.
Mm-hmm.
So even though they have these powers, they use them responsibly because they follow the law, and they don't want their rights infringed upon. So why would they do it to anybody else?
Right? Also, they probably know, hey, anything that I do leaves a trail of breadcrumbs. If somebody's highly motivated, they're gonna find out it was me that did that, and I am not going to be a happy man because of it.
Part of the reason why Snowden had to beat feet is because there were ways to figure who had access to those systems at that time. He was doing a lot of that data dumping at night. So there were very few people in the building when that was happening. So it's like it could only have been a handful of people who did it.
Okay,
so he was eventually going to be found out.
He was going to be found out for it, and I'm wondering if he would have made the same choice. I kind of get the sense that when somebody has made such a a commitment to the
He
principle
traded
is
his,
so
yeah,
violated that he must stand against it. Oh, so it's
right.
like the principle of the matter.
And he's got so many people going, yeah, you go, right? So
Uh,
he's traded freedom for celebrity. I mean, I don't think as many, the next generation isn't going to know who he is, right? Because, unless he's, running his own podcast or something.
Here's an interesting parallel. Just recently in the news, another scofflaw by the name of Julian Assange and
Oh,
of
yes.
WikiLeaks had been brought to the United States, and then now took a plea deal and is in Australia. So he's gotten
Yeah.
himself out of being in trouble for his involvement in dumping stuff that probably shouldn't have been dumped, right?
Yeah.
So what's the
And
trajectory
yeah,
that
he,
you
he
see
never
for
was the one.
Edward?
He was never the one who took it, but he was the one who was, posting it.
Yeah,
So,
which is important part of the whole mix in order to make things really weird. It is you got to have somebody who's blindly just throwing it all out there without any regard. I mean, just because you've got a bunch of stuff that's secret, there might be stuff that's legitimately secret. Do you really want to give away a secret that might get somebody else killed? I mean, I wouldn't.
yeah.
I don't think any
Right.
secret is that important for me to risk. I mean, yeah. So what's the trajectory for Edward? What do you think? And is he going to get a similar thing? Seeing as how the things he leaked, it definitely were damaging and caused a lot of ruckus, especially for you. But would you foresee something
Yeah, he'll be
similar?
shedding any
Is
tears for
that
me,
he's
though.
let off the hook? 10 years
I
of exile
think
in Russia has it been enough?
So what did I say earlier about, things get declassified generally, the expiration date for most stuff is 25 years. So
Okay,
we're already what, 11 years in.
about.
Um and the director at the time and the deputy director at the time and all the senior officials and everything like that who might feel like personally, um um affronted by what he did. But I think at some point, maybe not the next president, but the president after that. Who knows what this country is going to be like after this next election?
Oh, you're
Let's be
right.
honest. But
Oh, you're
but,
right.
but at some point,
Oh,
I think they'll go. All of that stuff is no longer even being done. So he'll probably have to come back and pay a fine or something like that, and then
yeah,
he'll be given
yeah,
his.
yeah. At the very least, you should have covered your salary because you had to spend all year having to give trainings on something because of what he did. You're going to cover
and the
Troy's
other
salary.
and the
Damn
other
it.
people that were on my panel too. Yeah,
Uh,
because it was
just yeah.
I had to put the course together, but I mean it leveraged a lot of the expertise that was luckily they're on site. I mean we had people who had been part of that FISA renewal process and and someone who actually could speak very eloquently about all of the different compliance rules. Every year anybody with a security clearance has to take certain mandatory training,
Mm-hmm.
and all of these things are in very boring documents to read in terms of this is what this authority is used for and only for this, and then you have to take a little test at the end to make sure you understood what you read.
I think I've seen
But it was
something
like,
analogous. I think I've seen something similar.
yeah, but I mean I think it was like people were like, yeah, yada yada yada, sure. But then when they got the opportunity to actually ask experts and say, can somebody really do that? Or, how does the approval process work? Because I've never been part of that, right? I just assumed that, it's like, we bring a judge in every year and they look at the stuff and go, yeah, that's still cool. We did that last year. We'll do the same thing this year. No, it's a different judge. And they always want to, and, judges tend to have egos. So it's like, I'm going to be the one that says no.
Yeah, but also judges want to have the confidence that that if they're going to make a ruling, they have been fully understand everything. So when you have to bring in a new judge, they have to do that whole process again of like learning the intricacies of that one situation that they're all talking about.
They don't want to establish a new precedent, and they want to make sure they understand, all of the facts and the evidence or whatever that the current laws and policies are based upon. So, it's a lot of work. And so some of those things aren't going through that process anymore because it's like, it's probably not worth it.
Well, there we go.
It's like what we might use this authority, once or twice a year? Is it really worth it? No. Okay. Let's get rid of it.
The takeaway that you all should be is that no shenanigans are not going on. The people in the intelligence community, they don't have the time for that kind of baloney. They really don't. No. You're not that interesting to spy on. I know I'm not. Besides, I put everything out on the internet. They don't have to spy me. They already know.
Just watch the channel.
Well, I don't know about you, Troy, but I've really, really enjoyed chatting with you, and I hope we get to do this again soon. Thank you for meeting me and trusting that this strange guy on the internet who makes pretty pictures with a calculator. The Midjourney is just creating the artwork that you see here, friends. It's like cheating. I love living in the future. I goddamn love it. Oh my God. Yes, but it's cheating. I can't draw any of this. I can't. However, Midjourney makes some beautiful images.
I wish back in the day that I had something where I can say, I just need an infographic made from this data that is a compelling image that will get my boss to approve my project. That's all I want. I spend all day trying to make a graph, and it's like, that sucks. I'm not artistic in this way, but now you can just write a prompt and boom, there it's.
You're just curating is all we're doing here, folks. It gives us 4 images per prompt, and we go, those look good. Let's see more versions of that, and it is amazing. The future holds a lot of promise, and I hope that you all get the sense that even though there are challenges, I think we can approach the future with optimism and a smile. I think there's a lot of great things in store for us, and I hope you're there with me. This has been Mostly Fictional Tales. I have been, for this length of the program, your host, Rathgar, your captain. And, if you like what we do here, and you want to see me do more of it, you can help out in a few simple ways. You need to like, you need to subscribe, you need to share this program. It really does help, and it's all free. If you got a few dollars, go on over to Patreon. Be a real difference maker and support me there. I cannot do this show without you. Seriously, I cannot. I thank you all for your contributions. And until next time, I advise you, as your Captain Rathgar, you be good. But if you cannot be good, don't be caught.